One of the things I love about Christmas as a Catholic is that it's not simply a day. It's actually an octave and even a season. And so we have our nativity scene still up, as we should in our homes too, because it's still Christmas. And when we look at the nativity scene, what do we see? We see baby Jesus, we see Mary, we see St. Joseph. We see a family. That's really significant. And what I invite us to do is just right now, I'd just like us to think about our family. Some of our family is just right around us, but others, the family might be spread out. It may not be around right now. Maybe some of them have already left this world. But whatever our family is, I just invite us to be aware of it and bring our family over to this family over here. They are beckoning us as a family. And we too are a family, we are a parish family here. And so together we go over to see baby Jesus, Joseph, and Our Lady. And in that place, I'd just like to unpack a little bit about family, some truths about the family. The first one is this, is that the incarnation happened in a family. You know, when God determined to enter the human history to save our race, he could have chosen any number of ways to come to us, to arrive. He could have overshadowed the earth like an atmospheric hurricane. He could have come at the head of a huge heavenly army. He could have descended in a godlike form, the way he ascended after the resurrection. He could have done anything he wanted. He's God. He's the creator of the universe. What he actually did was unlooked for, and hardly, we might think, an appropriate way for God to deal with his creatures. He is born as an infant boy in a human family. That's what the nativity scene reveals to us. The eternal Son not only took up our human nature, but came into this world in the midst of a family. And by that remarkable act, he underscored the truth that the family is the divinely established order for human life. The family is God's order for human life. The family, husband and wife, man and woman, dad and mom, who love each other in a lifelong relationship of fidelity and fruitfulness, is part of the divine and the natural order of things. It's essential to being and living as a human being. And this is the meaning of the passage we just heard from Cihak and from Colossians. Family is not just something that happened to occur, one social arrangement among many other possible ones. The family is not the invention of human beings. It is the God-given arrangement by which humanity grows into its true self and flourishing. Given this, it's also true that to be anti-family is to be anti-human. Now, that being said, from the very beginning, human beings, through sin, have been undermining God's plan for the family, revolting against it with terrible consequences. Let me just give you a few examples from the Bible. Adam wasn't there or didn't speak up to help his wife live in God's image when she was being tempted by Satan. Abram and Sarah decided it'd be okay for him to have a child by their servant Hagar because Sarah was barren. Jacob had 13 children with 4 wives. That's just the book of Genesis. I like that line from Bishop Barron. He says, just because it's in the Bible doesn't mean it's a good idea. Right. And so I think, and then we moderns, we think we're super innovative and clever, redefining family through contraception, no-fault divorce, adultery, abortion, same-sex marriage, so on. But we're actually just part of a long story of revolt through sin. with ever-worsening consequences for our children and people and society. We human beings deviate from God's plan at our own peril. And so it's important to defend God's plan for family life. So much of the suffering that we see in this world, the social problems, the human misery, is brought about by the breakdown of family life, by our desire to decide for ourselves what is right and what is wrong, our desire to redefine marriage and family life to fit with our whims and most often our woundedness. As Christians, we must hold fast to what God gave us from the beginning and to stand up for that truth. And yet, when we hear this beautiful truth about married life and we defend the divine origin of the family, we can sometimes make the mistake of sentimentalizing family and family life. We can conjure up idealized pictures of what a family is supposed to be, when in fact those sitcom versions of family never actually existed. And then we compare our family to the sentimentalized, unrealistic version, and we may think that we must be doing it wrong, that we need to change, we need to quit, we need to try again or abandon the whole project. The truth is, families are made up of real people like you and me, with real weaknesses and failings and addictions and wounds and traumas and stories. Let me just give you an example of a real family. The Martin family, the family that St. Therese of Lisieux came from. There's Therese, her father Louis, her mother Zélie, and her sisters and brothers. They were a real family. They were loving, they were joyful, they were faith-filled, they were prayerful. They had a dog named Tom. Dad loved to fish and to take his daughters to adoration. He was very much in love with his wife Zélie, who was also faith-filled and prayerful. She ran a successful lace-making business. The family was prosperous economically. Together, the Lord blessed them with 7 girls and 2 boys in the span of 15 years. Think like, oh wow, what a great family. Kind of picture perfect, and with worldly success to go along with it. But this family also had to deal with some really tough stuff. Within 3 years, 2 baby boys, a 5-year-old daughter and a 2-month-old daughter all died of various childhood illnesses. You could imagine Zélie, the mother, grieving, who battled depression and was despondent in the wake of those deaths, which left her emotionally unavailable for the other kids who needed her. Then Zélie herself died of cancer when Therese was 4 years old. And during childhood, Therese cried a lot, was overly sensitive, nearly dying of a hysterical illness. She was coddled and indulged by her sisters, who did little to help prepare her for life. Leonie, Therese's older sister, was constantly ill and disagreeable. She was viciously abused by one of the family's maids. She was expelled from school through tantrums. Mother didn't know what to do, so sent her to boarding school. Scholars think even today she might have been on the spectrum somewhere, maybe having touches of autism that, of course, went undiagnosed. Louis was sometimes impatient and short with the children. He would later suffer a paralytic stroke and develop dementia-like symptoms, which were hard and humiliating for him and the family. And yet this family has 3 canonized saints: Therese, Louis, and Zélie. So far, there's others that may be on their way, including Leonie. What does this mean? Well, the Carmelite father, Mark Foley, he wrote a great book reflecting on the path of holiness and the struggles of the Martin family. It's called, has to do with psychological and spiritual reflections on their family. He says this, he said, Therese did not make it a goal to get beyond the effects of her childhood, but to do the will of God in the midst of them. Therese understood that the emotional wounds of her childhood were not obstacles to spiritual growth, but the context of growing in holiness. Wow. Her emotional wounds of childhood were not obstacles to her holiness, but the context of growing in it. Does your family life struggle? Are there difficulties? Are there tough relationships? Is there unforgiveness? Is there death? Is there illness? That's the context for becoming a saint. If we struggle in family life, well, then that's exactly where you are supposed to be. That's the context, the setting, and the circumstances for you and me to become saints. So Jesus has revealed us powerful truths about the family. That is God-given, it's not man-made. It's a privileged place where human beings can learn to love and to be loved and to discover the meaning of life and its purpose, the God who loves them, their vocation and mission in this world. Holy matrimony is a sacrament and it's a channel for God's grace that receives God's help. The family is a special place where we learn to be forgiving, affectionate, tender, loving, kind, where we learn to die to self, to be healed of the wounds of pride and self-absorption. It's a beautiful place where we learn to take up our crosses daily and follow the Lord, as many of you have discovered. It's only self-giving love that is the secret to lasting happiness and the only road to true and genuine life. These are very powerful truths, but we also have to live in this reality where family life is difficult, it's tough, it's complicated, it's messy, and that's okay. Because as we saw with the Martin family, a messy family life is the context for us becoming saints. And so on this feast, we rejoice in the gift of the Holy Family. And what I want us to hear is we hear the invitation from the Holy Family to come, that we are to knock on the door of Nazareth, to have Our Lady come to the door and open it and say, why don't you come inside? You belong here. Come into this family. Whatever state our family is in, no matter how wounded or off track, Jesus can heal, save, and whatever the situation is, when it's given to him, he makes something beautiful. So what small step can we take to make our family life more like a holy family? I'll just leave you with 5 suggestions. 1, put Jesus first in your life and your work. That's straight from our parish playbook. That he always has first place in our priorities, our plans, our routine. And let me just offer a word to the men here, especially the fathers, that you are the priest of your domestic church. Stand up and spiritually lead your family. Get in the fight, and don't be like Adam, who just stood there silent while Satan was going after his wife. The enemy is going after you, your wife, your kids, your loved ones. Are you going to stand by, or are you going to stand up and use the spiritual weapons that the Lord has given us to defeat him? And in the back, the Knights have this great kiosk that has a ton of literature to help build that attitude and that pathway. Second, cultivate family time. This is a real, just human sort of thing that we've forgotten in this age. Cultivate family time, not retreating into our rooms and into video games and phones and screens, but talking to each other and spending time together to do things together as a family. There's great joy in that when we do that. Third, to cultivate the spiritual life in the home, that we don't just come and do our spiritual life here at the church, that we live it at home too. We have our Family of Faith program that helps families do that, to have holy images and crucifixes and prayer and Bible and saints' books around. And then we have a word to the kids here. Have you ever said to your dad or your mom, thank you? Thank you for the roof over my head, for the food on the table, for your love, that I am accepted here into this family? Fourth, open your heart to healing those deep down wounds and traumas. This is what disrupts family life the most. Jesus wants to heal us. And so dig into the Dr. Bob Schucht stuff, the be healed, be devoted on marriage, be restored. He has that Restored the Glory podcast that's very, very good. And there's a series of episodes on healing family wounds. And lastly, strengthen your marriage. Get help if your marriage is struggling. There are great resources out there, Retrovibe, Marriage Encounter. There's videos on Formed. And husbands and wives, this is advice I often give in confession. Ask Jesus to show you one thing that you can do right now to make the marriage more loving and more vulnerable. And if you ask the Lord in prayer, I guarantee in like 20 seconds you'll know something. Just one little thing to make it better. The Holy Family is inviting us into the home of Nazareth to bring our families as they are. He is here. He created the family. He has entered the world in a family. He's come to heal and to save us and our families. He will help us, and we can help each other make our families more like the Holy Family.